So one of the things that people brought up, let me read it to you. She goes, I actually agree with racist Joe here. I don't give a damn where you put them. Just get them the hell away from me. I've been personally brutalized by a product of the crack epidemic with whom I tried to help. Because they were talking about how, like, basically kids of, like, the 80s and 90s were all going to turn into being, like, super predators of the inner city. Their lack of parents and anyone to love them in their formative years is no problem of mine. I still carry scars and literal wounds from contact with them. So on the one hand, the issue, and I think it's valid, and especially that I've seen a lot of, like I said, black women raised, is that on the one hand, you know, yeah, like there's this like liberal push now with Black Lives Matter and everything to almost coddle people who have committed crimes and things like that. And I think that they're just the issues, like there just needs to be nuance. And I know that you've talked about specifically that you've even said like people that I've almost had more compassion for. You've even been like, don't feel sorry for them. Like, trust me, they're exactly where they should be, like in jail.
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts?
All right. Well, my thoughts on that is, you know, like I said before, we've spoken about it. I feel as though a lot of people just need to be like aware of the past situations that people have been in. A lot of men from that epidemic, from that crack epidemic and everything. I see both sides. I understand that it's not fair that women have to put up with that, and it's not their problem that they weren't showed love and stuff like that. But I think that people are more aware of the reason why people are how they are. You can protect another generation from going through it. You know what I mean? That's the only reason why I'm talking about it. Right. Is because if you don't know no better, you won't do any better. So now we're not dealing with crack nowadays. We're dealing with the opioids, pills and stuff like that. Like people are strung out on Percocets. All the young dudes, especially black dudes, like in my hood, like everybody's strung out on Percocets.
But it started off as a white thing. It's funny, too, because when the opiate epidemic started to hit a stride, it was a lot of white kids getting high. And it's funny because all the black kids didn't fuck with it. So you got to get away from the TV. This was the problem with like almost your whole interview. The TV was so loud in the background. Hey, sorry, I accidentally clicked off for some reason.
That's okay.
That's okay. But I guess... Go ahead.
I wanted to finish what I was saying. You ready for me?
Yeah. Like, what do you say to women who are saying basically that they're, like, losing their ability to empathize with men? Especially a lot of the black men who have, like... who've, like, talked so much shit and be like, oh, like... we don't fuck with black women anyway. And, but then whenever it's Black Lives Matter comes up, they're the ones who are expected to stand in between black men and police. And they're the ones expected to be out there rallying for, black men to have prison reform and all this stuff. But then they're the ones impacted by these insane rates of domestic violence, single motherhood, being caught in the crossfire. Their kids are getting hit. The schools are destroyed by this.
All right, well, what I say to those women in particular is, don't give up. You know what I mean? Don't give up. It's not. You can't categorize everybody off of that. You gotta. There is some people that's worth. You know what I mean? There is people out there that is worth not giving up on. I'm not gonna lie. Some guys, you definitely gonna give up on because fucking, they do throw black women to the side because it's like, they might have been going through some stuff, and it doesn't have to be because of you. It could have been because of somebody
Don't
that they
talk
dealt
like
with in
you're
the past.
talking to them, Dale. Talk like you're talking to me. You flow differently and I feel like you think you're talking to an audience. I can edit this. Talk like you're talking to me. Like,
Yeah.
just be sincere. Don't worry about how other people are gonna. Like, what do you mean not throw them to the side? Women have none of these people have any responsibility to a criminal man or to like keep up with him or to like, stand by his side. It's kind of a bullshit thing to say.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is I don't think that they should just give up on everybody because of that. If that's the case, all right. If you want to do that, just go date another race then. If you're so tired of black people, date another race then.
But that, yeah, I mean,
if that's what they're getting at, then fucking yeah, that's what they're getting at. You know what I mean? There's nothing else to say to that.
My point is, Daryl, that's not the issue. My point is that on the one hand, we want criminal justice reform because we see that there's this. Now you're acting bitter all of a sudden, right? But on the one hand, we want criminal justice reform, for black men, for kids in the hood, because a lot of times, these kids get groomed early on into criminality, and then that's all they know, and they get, lost to a foster care system because the family is so broken apart, and they don't have, parents that they can look up to, and the streets are just so beckoning with the fast money and all this stuff, right? They get these hardcore criminal records early on. They can't own guns, whatever, and then it's like they can't reintegrate into society, and it becomes a vicious cycle, and then they're heavily surveillance. Then they're on long-term probation and parole. Every move they make, what would have normally been like a small ticket or a really minor case that might have not even been noticed had they not been surveillance because of probation and parole, they're now going back in jail for a year and a half for the duration of the case just for a misdemeanor small thing. These kids are going back and forth to jail, and then
unfortunately.
Yeah, and you break up. Your relationships are broken up during that time. Your connections with your family are starting to disintegrate. And men aren't doing anything while they're in county jail. They're just sitting. They're not exercising. They're not working. They're not sending money home. Now, a lot of them go to, when they have new babies or kids at home or girlfriends and stuff like that. Girlfriends now are shouldering 100% of the responsibility alone while these guys are up in jail, not working, not sending money back. So now they have no choice, but they're getting, on social support and welfare, SNAP, food stamps, cash benefits. So we're paying to house the dude in jail, and we're paying to, for his family. Why not? I think that every man in jail, if you're able-bodied, you should have a job and you should work. And men should still be paying, child support back home. We also need to keep, stronger connections with families. They make it impossible to visit, to have any contact with your family. And then there also needs to be a time where if you've, after a while, they've got to start sealing records. There's got to be a way back into mainstream society. On the one hand, you have some dudes who are constantly in jail but getting kind of like a slap on the wrist for hardcore stuff. But then you also have other dudes who are constantly going back to jail for bullshit. For literally just nonsensical things, and it's a waste of everyone's money and time, and it's hurting families, it's ripping families apart. Then these girls who need help at home, they're struggling to raise kids, they've got another dude who's kind of like, hey, like, what's up with you? He's out, he's got a job, he's, good with the kids, and now it's like, all right, well, that just seemed like the easiest, most logical thing. Now she's, spending time with him, she has another kid by him, but then the other guy comes out, and it's like it gets all fucked up.
Yeah, it gets really messy, man. It gets really messy. And then, it's just an ongoing chain, man. And honestly, I listened to everything you just said. I honestly don't know what to say to none of that, man. It's a hard topic, man. It's, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Like, they'll never... how you think things should be and how it's supposed to be, and you would think that they would be trying to stop the chain of stuff. They don't. It's kind of like the system is doing it on purpose to tear the families apart and create more problems, so they can create more jails and stuff like that. So they can create more institutions. It's not to better the community. It's to trap the community and make them fucking susceptible to going in and out of jail and prison over and over again. It's creating jobs in the correctional departments. It's creating more prisons in the state up in the mountains.
The prison industrial
their
complex.
Economy is flowing. Yeah, their economy is based on us being housed for the slightest little thing.
And how much?
You know what I mean?
How much do they make per prisoner per bed?
Unfair. It's about $70,000 a year, $70,000 a year in the state facility, and it's even more than that if you're on like medication for depression or asthma or anything. There's just the more medical attention you need, the more it costs to house you a year. So you send somebody to 10 years in prison, 10 to 20 years in prison for armed robbery or something like that. And you end up paying, the taxpayers pay $1 million to just keep that person in prison, to pay a bunch of people that live in the mountains to babysit them. You know
well, and it's not just, and listen, it's not just the jail warden, you know, because you think of the prison industrial complex and everybody that makes money off of having de facto a slavery class. You know, the 14th Amendment, slavery was abolished for everybody except for criminals who are serving time, right? So those are the only institutionalized slaves that are still in effect in modern times. And you know, you think of the prison industrial complex and everybody making money. It's not just the prison itself, which is already huge. You have the food contracts; those people are making money. The jail warden. You have the
commissary contract.
Yeah, the commissary contracts. You have the cleaning contracts, the contractors who come in and gotta fix things. You know, you've got the weapons and all that sort of stuff, and the surveillance and the people who are paying. Handling the cameras and the closed caption cameras, the guards and stuff like that. So you have all those people, but then you go even further out. You have the judges. You know, you have the lawyers. You have the police who make money off of meeting certain quota. You know, who then, you know, whoever's outfitting them. If they were to lose the prison system, if we had no more prisoners, a huge economy would suddenly, you know, be taken out. So there is an entire class of people who profit off of the recriminalization and the reincarceration of an entire communities of people.
Yeah. And I want to say this, to piggyback on what you just said. It gets deeper than that, because you got some of the state facilities where people are sentenced to state time or under state supervision and get one little misdemeanor. It could be a bag of weed, and now they're housed in a state facility with people that's doing life sentences over a bag of weed. And those guards, they'll play the games with you to make you stay in prison longer. They'll write you up and lie on you if they got a problem with you and they don't like you. You know what I mean? It can be something simple as they just don't like you because you're an alpha male and they're a beta male. You know what I mean? It could be something as simple as you look like a guy that screwed his wife before. You know what I mean? Be something like that. It can just be something really, really like crazy. Like, you would be surprised how they treat inmates in the state facilities. And I don't think that it's fair that you're running your little small town up in the mountains off of a prison that houses 2,500 inmates. They were shutting prisons down in Pennsylvania not too long ago. And do you know that they boycotted? They stood out with picket signs. Don't shut this prison down. Our economy is based off of this prison. We got one gas station in town and one market. And, you know, if you shut this place down, this is all our livelihood going out the window. This is unfair, you know, and, you know, people looked at them really crazy. Like, why would you want to, like, why are you, like, going all the way out to, like, keep people in prison that don't need to be in prison? Because when that happened, when they're shutting those prisons down, they're not just releasing prisoners. So I don't want people to think that, they're just going to throw all the bad people out on the street. No, that's not what they do. They take the people that's up for parole and that's been doing what they got to do, college classes, not getting in trouble, being respectful, being, being group oriented, doing AA meetings, NA meetings, anger management, violence prevention. These guys are up there teaching classes to other people, like, you know what I mean? Those are the guys that they're looking at to get them out of prison. But they didn't want that. They didn't want to get guys out of prison early. They want guys to serve their full sentence because
that's what Kamal Harris did. Do you know that the California Supreme Court ruled that there is an unconstitutional amount of over incarceration of mass? Basically, they ruled that it was mass incarceration in the state of California, and they put out a memo that all prisons had to look to reduce their prison population and see where they were low-level non-violent offenders who are serving, intense sentences who could, realistically and safely be released. Do you know that Kamala Harris, when she was the state prosecutor, her office filed a countersuit basically saying that they did not agree to downsizing the prison populations in the state of California on the basis that state prisons in California rely on the free labor of inmates to battle wildfires. She literally said that if we release all of this free labor that we have, the state of California is going to be in danger from wildfires because now we're going to have to scramble to get contracts for people who can do the work that we were getting from these free labor. And these are not violent offenders. These were all people there for like marijuana charges. She also bragged about having people there for marijuana, and she also do you know that there is a ton of men that when she was prosecutor, who she kept in prison long past their minimum sentences?
The Attorney General of California. We're joined now by Lara Bazelon, a professor at the University of San Francisco School of Law. In January, she wrote a widely read article in the New York Times titled, "Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor." Bazelon wrote, quote, "Time after time, when progressives urged her to embrace criminal justice reforms as a district attorney and then the state's attorney general, Ms. Harris opposed them or stayed silent. Most troubling, Ms. Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that had been secured through official misconduct that included evidence tampering, false testimony, and the suppression of crucial information by prosecutors."
Lara Bazelon joins us now from San Francisco. And two things happened in her tenure as DA that I think are worth mentioning. One is that there was a big crime lab scandal whereby there was a lab technician who was using the drugs rather than testing them. And as a result, many, many convictions became tainted. And it turned out that her office had known for months, top attorneys had, and had not disclosed that information to the defense. And when a judge found out, she became quite incensed and wrote an opinion castigating Harris for allowing this to happen. Harris's reaction to that was to try to get the judge disqualified by saying that she had a conflict of interest because her husband was a defense lawyer. That failed, and 600 cases were thrown out. The second piece of her tenure that I think is important that not a lot of people know about is a case involving a man named Jamal Truelove. That case was tried by Linda Allen, who was one of Harris's deputies. And the case against Truelove turned on one eyewitness. It was a one eyewitness identification case. He was convicted and sentenced to 50 years to life. And the Court of Appeals threw out that conviction, castigating what Allen had done as gross and egregious prosecutorial misconduct. They said that her closing argument was a yarn made out of whole cloth. Recently, Truelove sued the city of the city of San Francisco, and won a $13.1 million judgment.
They should have been paroled out. She unconstitutionally kept them, again, to keep exploiting them for labor.
You take your prosecutorial record against the push in your party for criminal justice reform. There's a lot of concern among, especially more liberal and younger parts of the party. You may not be the best person to do that, given that you are implementing those tough on crime initiatives as a prosecutor? Can they trust you to do that?
Well, here's the thing. When I became a prosecutor and when I was elected district attorney and also attorney general of California, I implemented some of the most significant reforms to date during those years that had been implemented. Like I said, I created one of the first reentry initiatives that became a model. It was designated as a model in the United States for what law enforcement should do to be, as I call it, smart on crime. I was the first in the nation leading the State Department of Justice in California, which, by the way, is the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, to require my agents to wear body cameras. I created, as Attorney General, the first in the nation implicit bias and procedural justice training for law enforcement, knowing that that had to be addressed, which is the implicit bias that exists in law enforcement and the potentially lethal outcomes that occur from that.
So the concerns are overblown?
The concerns are overblown, yes, no question.
So that is Senator Kamala Harris on Face the Nation, speaking to correspondent Ed O'Keefe. If you could respond to this, Lara Bazelon.
Sure. So you can hear her struggling to come up with a list. And she starts with her Back on Track program that she implemented as DA. This was a program that did help certain very select non-violent offenders re-enter society. It affected a very small group of people. She then talks about body-worn cameras. She was asked by the California state legislature to support a bill to mandate all police officers wearing body-worn cameras, and she declined to do that. With respect to implicit bias training, that is important. What's also important, and I would say more important, is investigating officer-involved shootings. She was called upon by the legislature to do that, and once again, she declined. And then when you go down the list of the issues that we think about when we think about a progressive prosecutor, on every single one of those issues, she was on the wrong side. And in some cases, her opponents ran to her left. So, for example, with marijuana legalization in her run for re-election as Attorney General, her opponent ran to legalize. She was against it. She's since changed her position now that the vast majority of the Democratic Party has moved in that direction. There are other examples as well. Her failure to support legislation that would reduce certain felonies to misdemeanors, going after parents criminally for having truant children. So there's a lengthy list of policy positions where there was the progressive path and there was the center-right path, and she did not take the progressive path.
I am proud of the work we did, work that has received national recognition.
Senator Harris, your response?
That is simply not true. And as Attorney General of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice, I am proud of the work we did, work that has received national recognition for what has been the important work of reforming a criminal justice system and cleaning up the consequences of the bills that you passed when you were in the United States Senate for decades. It was the work of creating one of the first in the nation initiatives around re-entering former offenders and getting them jobs and counseling.
Thank you, Senator.
I did the work as Attorney General of putting body cameras on special agents in the state of California, and I'm proud of that work.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Gabbard. Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
I believe we need to legalize marijuana. We need to move it on the schedule so that we can research the impact of weed based on a developing brain. Okay.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college,
I inhaled. I did inhale. It was a long time ago. But yes, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
We need more joy in this world.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response,
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
You know, and it's just sad for me to see the community turning in on itself and pointing the fingers at each other. And I understand, and it's like, but at the same, it's hard. And this is why I just think that saying that, you know, again, we shouldn't care about what men are going through, and men shouldn't care about what women are going through, and seeing each other as the enemy. That's playing into what people want, because at the end of the day, it's like we're all being victimized by it. Because if we don't care about what's happening to men, or why, you know, they're being groomed towards criminalization, you know, then those are the men who are going to be partnering with these young women, right? Who are going to be fathering young girls, who are going to, you know, and do damage. And a lot of these girls are growing up without fathers, who are, you know, getting fucked over early by men. You know, now they've got young kids. Now they have a revolving door of boyfriends coming into these kids' lives. And we know that that's dangerous. We know it's the Cinderella effect. Stepfathers are very dangerous, theoretically. You know, that's why you really need to be careful what kind of a man you allow into your house. It's like, it's just real, you know? And then these girls are looking up to their moms, and like I said, we just had a conversation about it, about people that we know, older women that we know, who are still worried about dating into their 40s, and they have adult children or older children, and it's like, it's just, the family instability is such a problem. You know, I really, really feel like the key to fixing a lot of things is families really need to tighten up, and women need to gatekeep hard who they carry children for. You shouldn't be carrying children for anybody who other than a husband, somebody who's committed himself, and not just gone to a courthouse and signed a paper. But I mean, like, even this whole social aspect of marriage, the letting everybody know, the big, you know, public ceremony, the like telling the whole community, like, this is my family, this is who my highest priority is, this is who I will work for, this is who I'll commit myself to. You know, I think that when we let marriage go, when we let families go, look at your issue. Had you had a strong family, you're a really like high IQ person. You're an intelligent person. You're a very athletic person. You're a nice person. You're a really like social person. People like you. You know, your background is fucked. Your childhood was fucked. You know, I mean, and you know, and you know, your stylistic choices reflect that. Like, you know, I don't know that you would have had tattoos on your face, like if you grew up out here, you know, in the suburbs or whatever. But that's all adaptation.
It's part of my culture, though. It's part of my culture, and you know, me having close friends and family that owns tattoo shops. I worked at a tattoo shop, and help run a tattoo shop at one point in time. You know what I mean?
I don't care about the tattoos. The one thing is that they're
barber.
becoming more mainstream, and I think that you do a good job of like integrating them, and you're outgoing enough to pull it off. You're outgoing enough, and you're nice enough, and you are able to diffuse people's defenses once they get to know you because of how outgoing and nice you are, and polite you are, and all that kind of stuff. But I just think that like had you had a stable family, like I always wonder like who would you have been, you know? And unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but even like, you know, unstable family begets more instability than, you know, kids who grow up from unstable households, you know, end up recklessly reproducing even more, you know? And it's like, because they you know, they didn't understand, you know, and then when you have an entire community of dysfunctional families or broken families and broken homes, it's not like, oh, well, I see that, you know, my mom's single, or, you know, we grew up like this, but everybody around me has a healthy blueprint for a family. I just, you know, my situation was a little bit different, but, you know, when you have an entire community where there's no fathers in the home, you know, when it's kids are just being raised by anyone, and, you know, women don't even start to even resent the kids or just not even value the children so much, because again, it's hard when you're raising a kid for somebody who you hate. You know, yeah, the maternal instinct is strong, but, you know, it's hard when you see that somebody is off doing something and you realize you're doing all this free labor for him to continue his genetic lineage.
Yeah. By yourself, yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair. And a lot of us men are guilty of it, but I don't think that we think that deep into it. You know, the more that I sit back and think of it now, the conversations that we have about it, I don't think that men think that deep into it. And I'm going to say this will be the last thing. I feel as though a lot of men, including myself at one point in time, don't recognize or understand that enough, you know, to even consider it. When we do leave women and stuff, it's like, damn, she's going to have to raise this child by herself, and, you know, it's my lineage that she's continuing, it's my child, it's my sperm that, you know, that did this. And, you know, a lot of men don't even look at it. A lot of men get so, I know a lot of women don't think that men are really emotional and have feelings and stuff, but I don't think men tap into it. Men don't think that deep into it. Like, damn, these are my responsibilities, my kids.
But
like,
that's because they don't have to do shit to get a child to carry their child, or a woman to carry their child anymore. See, you're right. Naturally, men don't understand. You know what makes them understand? When they're being kept out, when they are being gatekept from sex. Now, men can get sex from any woman because we have birth control and we can afford to have all this recreational sex. Before, men used to not even be able to get sex if he wasn't marriage material or if he wasn't father material. The only way to even get sex was to marry a woman, and the only way to marry a woman was to prove yourself by building up yourself financially through, work. You know, everyone's porn soaked now. Everyone's having sex with everybody. And it's nothing to get a woman to carry your child. No offense. You know, look at some people we know. You know, women will just pop up pregnant, and it's like, you know, men don't care because they can just go get another woman to do it, and another woman. And we're in a really desperate time because we're selling women this lie that, oh, you know, fuck marriage. Who cares about marriage? Oh, I've even hearing women saying, oh, I don't do labels. That helps men. That doesn't help women saying I don't do labels. How dumb do you sound?
No, well, for most women, that would just mean that a lot of men would jump on her heels because, like, damn, that's the bitch I want right there. That one right there just says she don't even want the label. She on my type.
And the truth is, at the end of the day, the way to protect, and no offense, but, you know, you having children that you don't take care of, at the end of the day, and as fucked up as it sounds, doesn't really hurt you. It really doesn't. It might hurt your feelings. It might make you a little sad, but it really doesn't damage your life in any meaningful way. But it will completely destroy a woman's life. That's why women must be empowered to never, ever, 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 ever carry children for a man who isn't her husband and who hasn't fully proven himself as capable of supporting and providing for them, and who is fully committed. You know, a man can go and have 10 different, starter babies that he doesn't care about, and then finally grow up, get a job, become great, do all these good things, and then find a woman he actually loves and fully commit to her and her child, and they're all winning. Meanwhile, the other women are going to be in the background struggling, and the fact of the matter is it really doesn't impact that man that much. That's why women really, really need to be re-empowered to just stop fucking giving losers sex. Stop fucking sleeping with these guys. Don't give them children. Do not get pregnant with them. Don't even sleep with them. We've got because at the end of the day, a woman is the only one who's going to pay that price.
Yeah, I feel you're definitely right. But a lot of women, they just be wanting that quick gratification. They be just wanting to have sex. They be wanting to get this shit off. You know what I mean? And a lot of them end up catching feelings and try to give dudes the benefit of the doubt of like, oh, he's a nice dude. I would love to have this baby. Like, the baby would be so cute.
And we're teaching women to forego marriage. The few women that I do know, I grew up in a community where most people are married and do have successful families. But, a lot of women in our generation are getting pregnant first and then building marriages around it, And luckily the guys are decent enough, and a lot of them grew up in basically stable, also stable communities where marriage and intact families were normal. So they're doing the right thing. But we're also banking on a lot. And it's these marriages and couples that weren't really planning to have kids. It just kind of happened. So then you're not really sure, like, was I with this guy because I really thought he was going to be a great father and a great husband and great provider? Or did he ever have other cool qualities that were cool at the time?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot for everybody to think about, men and women. Mostly women, though. Mostly women, sad to say, the more that I learn and sit back and think, you know what I mean? The more that I learn as a man, you know what I mean, about everything. But, I agree with you on a lot of things that you say.
Sex is a huge motivator for men. Sex is a huge motivator. If a man can't get laid and he can't get a girl to touch him, to look at him, to do anything, he'll change. That'll motivate him. Oh, he'll go get a job. Oh, the dudes who are getting laid, the dudes who are getting, women to sleep with them and to do things with them, they have jobs, okay. He'll either stay mad and stay celibate.
Women gotta make that big step, though.
What?
Women gotta make that big step, though.
Yeah.
I said women gotta make that big step, though. Listen.
I love you. All right, I love you. I'll talk to you later.
I love you, baby girl.
Right.
I love you, though, okay? We'll get you on. You're making me start feel bad for women.
Yeah. That's why telling the truth matters. That's why telling the truth matters. That's why, so that young women don't have to go through this shit. It's not a game. It is also why, like, all right, I love you.
I love you too.
All right, bye.
All right, we just cashed out like $5 each. Okay. We had like a really serious winning streak over on the Panda Express.
Now we're going to Dunkin' Donuts.
It's a celebration. I got $3 and $1.